You heard that one, too.
Oh, yeah. I think this has been used in countless Old Navy commercials.
Chris Marola, ladies and gentlemen. Red Momentum Strategies. Consultant to the GOP extraordinaire.
Everybody loves you, and so do I.
And Joey likes him for some reason.
We love you, Chris.
Hey, now that we're telling birthdays, Joey's 31. How old are you?
Who, me?
Yes, you.
No, the other Chris Marola.
Well, I'm in my early 40s.
That's a good age.
Yeah. What about you?
58.
And Joey is what, 29?
31.
31. That was close. Okay. All right. So,
Yeah, I'll take 29, though.
Jimbo is
Cool
also
number.
58.
Jimbo's also 58?
Yeah, I've got him by. He's a May
Right.
of 54. I'm a January of 54.
So you're only 4 or 5 months apart. Okay.
4 months, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, hey, I sent you an email a few days ago about a woman who was working at the polls in Woodbridge, Virginia, which is not far from where my wife and I live. And she said she noticed enormous amounts of voter fraud just at that one polling station alone. Did you get a chance to see that video?
I did.
Yeah. So this is I'm still staying on that theme because the more you dig into this thing, the more it becomes obvious something very fishy and very freaky is going on here. This woman who was at this Woodbridge station said, they had a list of the people who were registered to vote, and they would check the names off of these people when they would come in to vote. Well, the interesting thing was, she said it happened that 5-6 times in one day, someone was showing up in the name of that same person. And she's like, well, wait a minute, this person's already been checked off of this list. How is this possible? And I guess the Romney team had some issues with their Project Orca in checking things, but she was there, an eyewitness, and she said at least 40 to 50 times, just at that one polling station, she saw that kind of a voter fraud going on where people were impersonating the same person who had already registered to vote and had voted. So this was occurring just at one voting location. Now
Did they let them keep voting?
Well, yeah, apparently the polling station did let them. And you know what they also sometimes do when there's an issue? They've got this crazy idea that they have to let everybody vote. So they give them a provisional ballot, and then they'll let them vote by way of that provisional ballot and then count that at the end. Well, that's just another way for more fraud, because someone can just keep voting in the name of that same person on a provisional ballot, and as long as they count the provisional ballot, the vote counts. Well, see, that's another problem. Why do we have provisional ballots? Provisional ballots are for people who have issues at the polling station on Election Day. Well, if there's an issue, why in the world are you being allowed to vote in the first place?
Do you say now that you think the reason Romney lost was voter fraud?
I think there's a good case to be made that there are 3 or 4 reasons why Romney lost. One of the 4 reasons is voter fraud as one of the reasons. Not the only reason, but one of the reasons.
Couldn't the big reason be that more people voted for Obama?
Well, the big reason I think is that Romney, being a more moderate guy from Massachusetts who gave us Romney Care, the template for Obamacare, that was hard for some people to swallow. I think that's the first reason. And so, they just kept hammering away, the Dems did, at the fact that he worked on Wall Street and he had to lay people off. And so they called him a corporate raider, and they painted him as some Thurston Howell III character. They created that persona and just kept chipping away at it. So that was another factor. His harsh stance on immigration, talking about self-deportation of people who were here illegally, and just taking such a hard stand in order to defeat Rick Perry on immigration, that cemented his vote with the Latino community. I think it was Marco Rubio who said after the election, it's hard for someone to vote for you if they think you're going to deport their grandma.
I think that's a good observation.
Yeah, right, absolutely. So
and I'd also argue that was the turning point for Rick Perry. During that debate when he told the rest of them, if you want to deport these people, you don't have a heart, and the base, they were mortified.
Yeah, they were like, how dare you say that? You're accusing us of being harsh. He even had to apologize. But I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, he's making a touchy-feely argument, and I know that's not how conservatives think. We tend to think more left-brain, more logical, but that's a good argument to make in the general election. And I think one of the reasons why Jack Kemp, Mike Huckabee, for example, have always been able to do well as conservatives in these elections is they know how to touch that chord, the emotional, touchy-feely side, while still sticking to their conservative views. And, when people erupted, I was surprised because that's how Obama and the Democrats operate. So I didn't think it was a bad argument for Perry to go there.
I actually thought that Rick Perry could have done a better job.
Yeah.
That legislation passed the Texas Congress by there were 2 dissenting votes, so they passed it with enough to override his veto, even were he to choose to veto it. It was a slam dunk, and I think he failed to point out that he was complying with the will of his constituents.
Yeah, right. The Texas state legislature did pass that bill, and his argument made a lot of sense. He's like, look, the federal government is not doing their job. They're not enforcing the laws concerning immigration. So if I don't do something here and try to do something pragmatic and make lemonade out of a barrel of lemons, it's only going to get worse. His argument was, if we don't support in-state tuition for the children of illegal immigrants and allow them to get an education, become productive citizens, they're going to end up on welfare, they're going to end up joining gangs, they're going to end up doing crime. It's cheaper and more effective in the long run, his argument was, to go this route. I understand why people don't like it, but he was, again, making lemonade out of lemons. I mean, he was doing the best he could with a tough situation since the federal government wasn't enforcing the laws. But there's something else, getting back to voter fraud, that I thought was interesting. There were election officials there in the Philadelphia area who were also observing some things going on at the polls, and they were kicked out of the polls. And so it took a judge to reinstate them on Election Day. So here you go, more evidence that something's going on. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Why would the Democrats want to have these election officials, who were Republicans, kicked out of a polling station near Philadelphia? What do they have to hide? I
guess the same reason the Romney campaign went all around the country trying to get Gary Johnson booted off.
Yeah, that I don't understand, but I do understand this. There's an article I sent you from Town Hall, and Guy Benson wrote it. It's called The 400,000 Votes That Tipped the Election. And as I was mentioning after the election, this wasn't as big a sweep as the Democrats would want you to believe. It's very close. This whole election, hinged or turned on only 3 or 4 states. And here we go. He names 4 states that barely went for Obama. Florida was won by Obama by only 73,858 votes. Ohio by 103,000 and some change. Virginia 115,000 and change. And Colorado 113,000 and change. Now imagine if there's voter fraud in those 4 states. It does not take much for a state with millions of people and millions of voters to have voter fraud take 73,000 or 103,000 or 115,000 or 113,000 votes and flip it. So, theoretically, you can see how voter fraud could change the outcome of an election.
Yes, I could see that. I also think getting a better candidate for the GOP would have had a big impact. I mean, Reagan didn't have to deal with all that. I mean, maybe there was some voter fraud.
Well, I would say that the Democrats are more organized and more, more ready to strike than ever, especially with the head the president, the man that they look up to as the guy who helped run Acorn. I mean, my goodness, you've got the community organizer, the Mr. Saul Alinsky, pupil as their president and the leader of their party. When Acorn was forced to fold because they were exposed for their corruption, something had to fill that void, and it was Organizing for America, which is Obama's organization. So, I mean, I think it's a fair statement to say that with Obama as president and now reelected, that you're going to see more corruption because Organizing for America and those several hundred organizations that were associated with Acorn are now going to get an even deeper and stronger base in all these different swing states.
Chris, we hate to cut this short, bro, but we got to get out of here.
Hey, not a problem.
Happy Thanksgiving, Chris.
You too, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Chris Marola, Red Momentum Strategies. We'll be back after the break.